It is a friendship that took over the highest office in the world, and it has spectacularly fallen apart. What are we talking about? We're talking about the US President Donald Trump and Elon Musk, both resorting to snarky insults on social media.
It's been quite extraordinary. Elon Musk has, of course, become a major critic of the president's tax and spending cuts since he left the White House, and he only left the White House last week, so a lot's happened since then. I spoke this morning with Philip Luck. Now, Philip is the Economics Program Director at the Centre for Strategic and International Studies and the former Deputy Chief Economist at the US Department of State under the Biden administration. And he began by reflecting on exactly how much influence Elon Musk has had on the president.
Everything that we've heard from this administration as well as the previous administration is that, you know, whoever's in the room last has quite a bit of sway over what the president decides to do. And he was able to orchestrate being in the room quite a bit. So that provides a lot of influence. Certainly he didn't have influence in certain areas. We see that the bill on the Hill would remove EV tax credits, which would cost Tesla a large amount of money. And so we're not sure. And I would say, I think it's not a great sign in some ways that he doesn't have influence, because there are voices in the administration on economic policy that are proposing much more extreme, much less economist-approved policies.
So let's take a closer look at these tariffs. And I want to ask you about some meetings taking place in the coming days in a moment. But what direction do you think we're heading now with them, particularly as they're being questioned by the courts in the United States?
Yeah, so I mean, there's the meetings we're having with the PRC, and then there's the courts issues, and I'll sort of take those separately. In terms of the meetings, I think we're going to have sort of a back and forth. The problem we're going to have here is these types of conversations. There are large, hard structural problems to be solved, and this is not the way to solve them. So we might, have tariffs go up a little bit, down a little bit. There might be relaxations of certain export controls on their side on critical minerals. There may be relaxation of export controls on our side on ethane and other things. But these are all going to be things that are, in some sense, self-created economic harm by ourselves and the PRC that don't solve the underlying problem. Separately, to your point, there are these court cases. One thing to note about the court cases is these are only related to basically the Liberation Day tariffs. These are only tariffs put under IEEPA, which is an emergency act authority of the president, which doesn't directly cite tariffs as a tool you can use. So that's the basis of the threat to the tariffs. The administration still has ample tools. The steel and aluminum tariffs, which they just recently, this past week, increased to 50% on all imports of steel and aluminum, those are not being challenged by these court cases. That is the authority the president has quite soundly. So, I think there might be some tools that go away, but the administration has plenty of tools in their back pocket that they can use.
So let's talk about this meeting with China, right? Donald Trump has said on social media it should go, quote, very well. There are some high-level officials attending, Scott Bessent, my understanding, Howard Lutnick, Jamison Greer. How close are we, in your view, to resolving that impasse, particularly when it comes to this dynamic between the United States and China?
The bigger picture impasse, the structural problem of the PRC having a export-led economy and us having an economy that is living off of debt, that problem needs to be solved structurally in both cases by both countries, and that will not be solved anytime soon. If I had to put money on it, that's the underlying problem. To your point, I think we hopefully will have a situation where we can slowly ratchet down tariffs slightly. That would be good for us. That would be good for all of our partners who are invested in either economy and are trying to trade with components from the PRC or the United States. For instance, South Korea is immensely impacted by this because they have production bases that span across both these countries. The other thing I want to point out here again is that one of the things being negotiated is a relaxation of export controls. Both countries have really ratcheted up the pressure. With the PRC has really restricted our access to critical minerals, and industry is starting to really flash those warning signs on that. And on our side, we've restricted their access to ethane and other chemical inputs that, while not as effective as an export control, it's still going to be a source of tension between the two. So I would be looking at not only sort of the official actions on tariffs, but also these new battlefields, so to speak, on export controls.
So, I mean, let's say we don't have a breakthrough on either of those things you just mentioned.
Yep.
The global economy is very fractious at the moment. How high are the stakes here? What could happen?
I mean, they're enormously high. I mean, for not only for the sort of, short to medium run outlook to the global economy, this is a huge cost. This is sand in the gears. It's also just, immensely damaging to the global economic order that we've set up over the last 80 years and has taken billions of people out of poverty. Especially the actions of the U.S. administration asking countries to basically tear up their MFN agreements in accordance with WTO rules is really problematic. So anything we can do to pull back from this will be really, really valuable. The one thing I will sort of just caution is, this, while, we're following the news all very closely, every day feels like a new, emergency, but tariffs are taxes, and taxes cost money, but they don't create sort of market, enormous crashes in markets all of a sudden. These costs are going to be long-term, and they're going to slowly erode the economic activity in our economy.